So make sure that if it's just simply do lump sum contracts without overhead and profit in there. There's really no point in doing that. Nobody really likes to see how much profit you're making anyway. They only care about the bottom line. Off-site labor. This is except for specially fabricated materials. If you think you're going to be leaning for things that you're doing off-site in preparation or whatever it is that you're doing off-site, remember, let's go back to the definition. Not actually incorporated, it's off-site. Not being installed for the permanent benefit, it's off-site. You don't fall within the definition. Delay damages, same thing. Delay damages, let's assume that you have a contract. Contract says that for every day that you're late, you're going to be paying a penalty of X amount per day, $100 a day, whatever it is, not lienable. Why? Once again, not actually incorporated, not for the permanent benefit of the property. Another thing, going next, outside of the direct contract, let's assume that you have you want to lien for something that isn't in your contract. It's not lienable. And then this says, unless signed written change orders. Okay, what do I mean by that? Let's assume that your contract says that all change orders have to be signed in writing. First of all, I tell all contractors, and we're going to be getting to that later on, take out those written change order requirements. They only hurt you guys. They don't help you guys, because it's always the owner that says, oh, you didn't get in writing. Ha ha, you can't charge me for it. You did it of your own volitional will because you're just a nice guy, and, and I never told you to do it. And if you think you're going to charge me for that, you're not going to, because ha ha, look at your contract that you drafted. Well, that's why I say take them out. Take out those written change order requirements. They only hurt you. Well, if you're trying to lien for something that's not in your contract, you're not going to be able to do it. So, for instance, if your contract says that I'm going to be doing A, B, and C, and now you're trying to lien for as well D, E, and F, unless you have something in writing that shows or you can prove that there was a contract for that item, for those items, you're not going to be able to lien for it. So what do? Let's assume I'm representing a contractor. The contractor has all of this extra work, these change orders that were never signed, even though they have it written down. And this is always the case. They got it written down. It's never signed by the owner. What happens? Lien for the items that were done underneath the written contract. I have other counts like breach of oral contract, breach of, unjust enrichment for this other stuff, all these extras, quantum merit. We have other claims for that, but it's not going to be stuck into your lien. Indirect or consequential damages. Let's assume that while you're on a project, somebody backs up into your truck and damages it. Okay, well, that doesn't actually improve the property, and it's not for its permanent benefit. Okay? Next, we're on number 7. This is a mandatory lien notice requirement. 713.015 was recently enacted about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's already gone through 3 revisions. 3 revisions in 4 years. I don't know what they're doing. Anyway, this only really pertains to single or multiple family dwellings that a contractor is in direct contract with the owner for. Now, again, I'm not talking just general contractors. I'm talking about any person who's looking to lien, who's in direct contract with an owner of a single or multiple family dwelling up to and including 4 units. And the contract also has to be more than $2,500. This notice has to be in the contract. This big, bold-faced, black capitalized notice has to be in there. It says it has to be on the front page of the contract or on a separate page signed by the owner and dated. For years, the legislature had made this statute, but it had absolutely no ramifications. It was called the mandatory lien disclosure, but it didn't say what happens if you didn't put it in. It's mandatory, I understand, you got to do it, but what happens if you don't do it? It doesn't say you lose your lien rights. It doesn't say anything. Lots of places in the lien law it says that minor errors or omissions will be excused unless the owner has been prejudiced. This statute didn't say that. Nobody really knew. So my colleagues who are construction lawyers, we all took the same approach. If the contract didn't have it, we just didn't file the lien. We filed other actions, but we didn't want to be the test case for our clients to find out what would happen if this clause was not in the contract. So what happened recently? excuse me, if we were representing owners, we raise this up as a defense all the time. And there's a case law says, strict construction. In other words, you have to strictly comply with the construction lien laws if you want to receive the benefits, because it's in derogation of the regularly accepted law, which is the common law. In other words, this is a statute. You have all these rights based off of statutes. So if you want the benefits of these rights, you've got to comply with the statutes. Well, because we didn't know, there was uncertainty. Recently, as of about maybe 6 to 8 months ago, there was a change. And the change now says that if this provision is not in there, the failure to provide such written notice does not bar the enforcement of a lien against a person who has not been adversely affected. So now, let's say I'm representing a contractor, doesn't have this notice in there, and this notice is assuming it's required to be in there. In other words, again, it's for a family dwelling up to and including 4 units, and the contract is for more than $2,500. Then first question I asked, the interrogatory, the written question I asked, have you been adversely affected by the failure to include this notice, and if so, how? Nobody can ever answer it. They don't know how to answer that. How can you answer that? I don't know. Anyway, so this is another attempt of the legislature to try to protect the owners. Well, I also get questions. Hey, listen, this is going to ruin my business. How do you expect me to put this big, ugly, bold-faced black disclosure in there saying that I'm going to lien their property if they don't pay me?